That's going. Good. Awesome, man. We'll go ahead. We'll get to it. All right.
All right.
All right. Just sit tight. All righty, guys. Bobby Roast Beef here. Another episode of Jigs and Bigs. We got a great interview right here. I'm joined now by Powerbait Paul. Powerbait Paul is a content creator. I would probably say reluctant content creator, but your name has been thrown out there a bunch. Before I even interview Paul, I'm going to kind of explain to him how this all came to be. Your name came up during a trip that I was a part of, visiting North Carolina and fishing with the one and only Jabberhammer, Paul Roberts from Bass and Brews, and we were sitting around the campfire one night having a few beers, and we were talking about different guests and all kinds of stuff. And your name came up. He was like, "Have you ever had Powerball Paul on?" And I was like, "What the hell are you talking about, man?" I was like, "I've never even heard of Powerball Paul. What are you talking about?" He's like, "I figured you would have had him on because he's a Northeast guy. He's in your corner now." Yeah, you're in the Northeast, and Paul likes to think that we actually had a conversation about the geography of New England. What makes New England, the states that make it up. And he had just assumed New Jersey was part of New England. And I was like, oh, no. That's more the mid-Atlantic. It's
It's a
the
northern state.
Northeast. Yeah, it is. It is certainly a northern state, but New England is that six and that six alone. But it's amazing. Everybody thinks that we're so connected. So this got me kind of curious. I was like, I gotta look up this guy, Powerbait Paul. But dude, you said that you don't really consume a lot of fishing content. You spend most of your time fishing. The little bit of content that you've got out there, that is very apparent that you spend most of your time out fishing. But you're also no stranger to other, fishing podcasts and fishing live streams and platforms because you've been in a bunch of these. Let's go ahead and start from the very beginning, Paul. Tell me your story. I'm a sucker for an origin story. I kind of want to know how people came up in the fishing world the way that they did, what brought them to it. So kind of walk us through this point, and then we'll kind of go over some of the other appearances that you've made on social media. So the floor is yours, man.
All right. So I started fishing when I was about 12 years old. My dad would take me fishing every morning after he gets done work, and I loved it. You know what I mean? I love catching fish and largemouth bass. They quickly became my obsession. I loved bass fishing, loved it ever since I was young. Bass, crappie, even chain pickerel. They get a bad rep, but they're a lot of fun to catch, and they are all over the Northeast states,
Yeah, they are.
especially New Jersey. But and then eventually, as I got older, I'll go fishing with my dad in my teenage years too. Eventually, as I got older, I grew up, got my license, got my car, and that's where it all began. And once I got my license, my car, I got freedom. I went fishing every opportunity I could get. You know what I mean? Just always searching for the biggest bass I could catch, the most fish I could catch. It became an addiction.
Yeah.
But and ever since then, I actually do like 98% fishing from the bank. Sometimes I'll go in my buddy's boat, but I don't even own a boat or a kayak. All the fishing I do is from the bank for
Yeah.
now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I will get around to getting kayak eventually. But right now, I do pretty darn good from the bank because I know some really good spots during certain times of the year. That's what it all comes down to.
Yep. And that's what you need. I mean, you need
Yeah.
experience to do that. How many days a week are you usually getting out in like the peak of the season?
6, 7 days a week.
Dude,
I mean,
good for you.
but it's like, until unless I'm like, feeling sick or I have like a family function to attend, or we get our lakes locked over with ice because we don't really have
Yeah.
fishable ice in South Jersey. It doesn't freeze hard enough to go ice
Yep.
fishing. So once we get some of that shell ice in the wintertime, then I'll take it
Take a
easy
break.
until the ice melts. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Like in the winter, you're chasing more moving water than anything else.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep. Yeah, it happens.
But
That's how lately. That's how it's been up here too. We haven't had really good winters for like the last 2 winters, for what I would
yeah,
consider safe ice fishing.
yeah, yeah. But
That's dude. Go ahead.
but but in the wintertime, man, don't get me wrong. In the wintertime, I still grind as long as there's open water. I've caught some
Hmm.
big fish in the winter. Like I've caught
Oh yeah,
almost all of my biggest chain pickerel in the wintertime, like up to 6 pounds. Big
that's
pickerel.
nice.
And
Yeah,
the two biggest bass I've ever caught in my life, 6 pounds, 7 ounce, and 7 pound, 11 ounce was in early winter and late winter in that the colder months.
no kidding. Good for you,
But
dude.
yeah, I want to tell the story just right off the bat.
Yeah, go
Happened
for it.
in the beginning of the month. I was out
Mhm.
fishing South Jersey doing my pond hopping with a buddy who came down from Central Jersey down to fish with me.
Yep.
And we're just doing some pond hopping. He caught a decent 2 pound bass. We got a few pickerel in between us, and then I hook into something, and my rod is just bent. Like it feels heavy.
Yeah.
There's a lot. I've caught a lot of big pickerel at that spot this winter. So here I'm thinking,
Yeah.
okay, here we go, another 4 or 5 pound chain pickerel. Fun, but and then I see the biggest bass I've ever seen in my life just shoot up out of the water like a tarpon. And man, when I tell you that my heart just stopped. It's like time just stopped.
Oh,
It's
I
like
believe.
all of a sudden, dude, it's like I have got to do whatever I can to land this fish because if I lose this fish, it is going to crush my soul. That thing was so big, dude.
Oh, hell
And
yeah, dude.
then I'm yelling to my buddy, "Yo, Tom, I got the biggest bass I've ever seen on my line, dude, dude!" And, and he's come up for a head shake, and he comes running down the bank. So I'm just fighting this thing, and I'm just backing up and wants to get it towards the edge of the water. He bends down and lips it for me, and I just freak out. Yeah, yeah.
Freaking
And
awesome, dude.
we
Great.
get him up on this. We get him up on the bank, get him on the scale, 7 pound, 11 ounce. And my buddy's been fishing since the '90s, and even he's never encountered a 7+ in New Jersey before. It's just a
Yeah.
fish
Oh yeah.
like that is so rare.
You're not lying, man. They're up here. I mean, those kind of those size fish are up here. There's just not many, and it takes a lot of
Yeah.
filtering through a lot of
Yep.
different fish in order to be able to catch them.
Yep.
I mean, 7 pounds. Was that your PB?
7 pound, 11 ounce. That is my PB.
Awesome. That's
Yep.
a big fish, dude. That's a good for
Yep.
you, man.
I I
Come on,
I beat my I beat my previous PB by 1 pound, 4 ounce. 6.7 was my
oh,
previous.
shit. That's a nice jump,
Yeah.
man. Good for you, dude.
Yeah.
That's awesome, man. I think that's the thing. A lot of people they talk like fishing in the Northeast is it's just small fish. It's like it's not that it's just small fish. And actually, I think
Uh,
a lot of people are surprised. Like when I tell them the state record largemouth from Massachusetts is 15 pounds, jaws drop. You know,
mm,
but
yeah.
it's got a lot to do with the what I guess I'd have to say it's got a lot to do with the forage, like what part of the state, where about they are, what's going on in that area. But like they can absolutely get up here if it's the right kind of body of water. Um,
Right.
do you do any competitive fishing at all? Or are you just strictly just for the love of it, like because you're into it?
Oh, I've fished a couple tournaments, a few
Yeah.
tournaments with a few buddies. Actually, not last year, but the
Mhm.
year before, I actually fished a tournament with Brian the Carpenter, Mike Iaconelli's buddy. We actually
Oh
took
no
second
shit.
place on a South Jersey lake.
Nice, bud. Dude,
That
that's
was
not bad at all. That's
yeah,
freaking awesome. So yeah, you're getting out there, you're making it happen, but like you're not, and that's the thing. I love that. I always ask, a lot of these questions to figure out what like sort of niche in fishing any angler can be. And you're not ever pigeonholed into one area. Maybe at a certain time you're into something. Like a couple of years ago, all I was really doing is fishing for bass primarily. And then we started doing our online multi-series, multi-species scavenger hunt style tournaments. And it's just changed the way that I fish completely. Like now I'm way more excited about diversity in the stringer, you
oh
know,
yeah, oh yeah,
catching them all, and it's like I
oh
met
yeah.
lately. I've been making the joke like with Pokemon. It's like this is what it is for like middle-aged Ben.
Got to
Gotta catch them.
got to catch them all.
Hell yeah, man!
It's,
It's a
it's
blast.
yeah.
I absolutely love it, dude. So let's go ahead. Let's talk about some of the podcasts and some of this live streams and the other content that you've been a part of. Walk me through that. Like, how did those doors open, and what programs and what shows have you been on?
Well, probably the number one thing that I've ever been a part of is Ike Live. I've
That's
been part
amazing.
of Mike Iaconelli's podcast. There's a
I feel
pretty
like
cool story.
yeah, that's what I wanted to.
There's a cool story about the day I first met Mike Iaconelli. So this was April 1st of 2021, opening day for trout fishing, catch and release only for 1 week in New Jersey.
Uh-huh.
So I'm like, you know what? I never caught rainbow trout before. Let me go try and catch a new species. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Just for the
yeah,
heck of it,
man.
adding a new species. So here I am, trout fishing along the bank with a Vibrax spinner. I already caught like 9 of them, and I see this guy in a bass boat,
Mhm.
and I can't tell from a distance, but I see on the boat it says Ike Live. I'm like, no
No.
way.
Yeah.
I'm like, all right, I'm like, you know what? I
Yep.
gotta hear his voice to make sure. I yell, yo, you guys catching anything? And then I don't even know what he says, but as soon as he starts talking, I'm like, no freaking way. Mike Iaconelli, is that you? He's all like, what's up, man? It's me. I'm like, dude, you're like one of my fishing heroes. Can I get a picture with you? And he's all like, come on, man. And so I'm walking around the bank and he's throwing a big trout swim bait around and he throws it into this cove and man, he hooks into a giant, a 7 pound, 4 ounce Jersey largemouth. All I hear is net, 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 net. And Brian the carpenter was on the boat with him, and he scoops it up, and Mike is just doing his classic freak out, yeah. And
Oh, hell yeah.
then so it was incredible. So then he steps up onto the dock to get a picture with me and holding the 7 pounder. It was
Oh
incredible.
my
And
god.
then it was awesome. And then a year later, he invites me on to be a South Jersey correspondent for the 2022 Ike Live series. I've been to his I've been in person to his studio, got to talk about the local fishing. It was a good time.
Dude, that is amazing, man. Like, talk about right place, right time, and like,
Oh
how
yeah.
cool is it that he hooked into a fish of that significance? And really, regardless if he was doing it intentionally or not, but he put on a show for you, really, you
Oh
know.
yeah. Yeah.
And that's freaking awesome. I love Ike's energy,
Oh
and I
yeah.
think that
Yeah.
he get, sure, there's some haters that are out there, but like I feel like he is bringing, or has brought rather, a breath of fresh air to the professional side of the sport. That's in a lot of ways I think it's much needed, but the guy is just an absolute legend.
He
That's
is.
amazing, man. That all just kind of like the pieces all kind of fell together, and or you're like, because I was like, you got to be kidding me. I was like, really? I'm like, now tell me about how'd you get the name Powerbait Paul, and who gave you that name?
So a buddy of mine, me and him would go fishing all the time. His name's Robert. Me and him would go fishing all the time, and I would just be using these simple little baits, Berkeley Power Worm, seven
Yep.
inch red shad, and he was amazed at all the nice bass I was catching consistently on them things. Just a
Yeah.
Texas rig. I caught my first ever 6 pounder on a Berkeley Power Worm, just swimming it along the bank, and eventually he just started calling me Powerbait Paul because
Yeah.
Berkeley Power Bait Power Worms, and I just went along with it.
Yeah.
And I actually have a bag right here. This is the reason. The 7 inch red shad power worms.
Dude,
These little baits are probably I've caught probably more bass on this bait than I have any other lure.
I have
It's a great bait.
I have exactly that color in my tackle bag. Exactly that
Yep.
color. And man, I'll tell you, those baits, they stink so good.
They do, man. It
You know
just
what I mean? You're like, oh,
ah
what you're throwing right there. That is
yeah. Oh yeah.
awesome, dude. I love that. Yeah, and I think it's cool, and that's how it is when it comes to like monikers and names. Like somebody's got to give it to you, and it's
Yeah.
gotta it's
Yeah.
gotta flow. And as soon as the Jabberhammer said to me, he was like, "Oh, you got to get Powerbait Paul on the show." I was like, "Hell yeah, I do. Hell yeah, I've got to get him on the show." That is amazing, dude. Let's talk a little bit like let's talk Jersey fishing and bank fishing specifically. Like you said it when you were giving me you said you don't have a boat or a kayak yet. I'll tell you though, like I said, I've already mentioned we do the multi-species scavenger hunt. We had a guy place in the top 3. I think he got second place, and he did it fishing
Okay.
exclusively from the bank, exclusively,
Mm,
and just put the
nice.
hammer down with some of the diversity that he caught. It was unbelievable. And I feel like for a bank angler, when you can kill it, it's that much more of a flex in a way.
Oh yeah. Oh
You know
yeah.
what I mean?
Heck
Like
yeah.
when you're getting on them and you're just like, okay, cool. Cause you know, the reason why bank angling is so challenging is just the access points. You
Limitation.
yeah, you've
Limitation.
got so much limitation. There's only so much fishable bank that you can get to at a lake, and then you've got to look at like, so how far can I cast, and how agile I
Hmm.
am I to get out there? How why? Like I know a lot of bank anglers that are like they never put their feet in the water, and then there's other
Hmm.
bank anglers that are just like, yeah, I'm going waist deep in the summer. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And I'm
Oh
gonna
yeah.
I'm gonna work this the best that I can. When you're going out, let's talk rigging. What's your process? Like, what are you bringing out with you? Are you going more lighter so there's less to carry around? Are you trying to make the most out of what you've got and take some variety with you?
Basically, I go out minimal tackle. I stick with my confidence baits, the stuff that I know will work
Yeah,
during a certain time of the year and the certain places I go. But I always go look at my Instagram posts. All those bass selfies, all those fish pictures. I'm always wearing a Field and Stream fishing vest. So
yeah,
that's where I keep my bags of soft
yeah.
plastics, some extra hooks for when I get snagged,
Yep.
my jaw clamps for like pickerel and
Good
snakeheads that I might
use.
catch, and scissors, just pliers, all my necessary tools. Basically, it's like Batman's utility belt for fishermen. You
It
know what
really
I mean?
it really is. And it's
Yeah,
funny. We had we talk a lot, we try to we try to make jigs and bigs more about the complete angler, whatever it is that you do.
right.
So if you're out there and you're fishing in a boat, I'm talking a boat where you've got any sort of storage at all, but that can vary too. If you've got a bass boat,
Hmm.
21-foot bass boat, you've got storage. Like you don't even have to store your stuff at home; just store it in the boat. You know what I mean? Just store it
Oh
all.
yeah,
Like carry
oh
every
yeah,
last thing you've got, which is great and it's a convenience.
yeah.
When you step down a little bit and you're talking more like the John Boat Angler or the Tiny Boat Nation guy, it's a little bit of a
Hmm.
different animal. You get into the kayak world, you have to streamline a little bit more. There is a like it's a true art to streamline what you've got, but also be prepared at the same time and be a bank
Hmm.
angler.
Hmm.
I've done it all, man. I've tried different backpacks, sling packs. I found are some of my favorites. But
Hmm.
now, like I've noticed this year, all of my bank angling I've done, and to streamline it again, yet again, has all been BFS. I've been getting into the BFS sort of end of fishing, trying to learn it as much as I can and figure out how to use it to its advantages for all types of different fishing. And I feel like as a for when I'm going out fishing from the bank, it's amazing just to have on hand. Sure, there's going to be other instances where I need to carry a few more combos. How many rods are you carrying out with you?
I keep usually about 7 to 9 in my car all the time, and
Gotcha.
I carry with me about two or three,
Yeah.
confidence baits.
Yep.
Basically, I always got to have either a jig rod or a Texas rig rod,
Mhm.
a miscellaneous rod, which is usually a spinner bait or a paddle tail swim bait,
Yep.
and then of course my ultralight 6 pound test little grub or little tiny paddle tail swim bait
Yeah.
in case I
Yes.
come across a school of panfish.
Oh,
And
hell yeah.
speaking of panfish, this morning, it was downpouring. I had the best day of crappie fishing in my life. I caught 50 black crappie from the same spot on the bank under a bridge.
Holy
Mixed
shit.
bag, mixed bag of white crappie and black crappie, all mixed. It was so much fun.
50 from one spot. Now I saw the
50.
the post you would put up. I didn't realize that was from today. But
That
I
was
got
this morning.
that is nuts, dude. 50 from a
Yeah.
single spot. Good for you, dude.
Yep. I'm telling you, just bridge pilings.
Yeah.
They are crappy magnets, and
Oh
they
yeah.
are they
Yeah, they
they
are.
hold some big ones,
Yeah.
especially if it's like really deep. Like the spot I fish, it's a lake under an overpass. It's about 7 to 8 feet deep under the
Yep.
bridge around the pilings. Dude, it is just one fish after another. Good
Yeah.
ones, small ones, everything in between.
Dude, that is wild, man. That is freaking nuts. Let's talk. You mentioned, confidence baits and some of the combos that you're taking with you. What is your short list of confidence baits look like? Like, what are the things that you can get it done? I mean, we know the power bait, the Berkeley power bait worms for sure. What are some of the others that are in there?
Well, some of the others are speaking of jigs and bigs. I knew
Mhm.
I was going to talk about the Bitsy Bug,
Oh yeah,
Strike King Bitsy Bug, 1/8 ounce.
great jig.
That's actually in green pumpkin. That's actually what I caught my 6.7 previous PB on in November.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, that's
That's
a nice jig
fantastic.
right there.
Yeah, it is. It's a popular jig. People love the Bitsy
Yeah.
jig. You got a favorite trailer with it?
I usually go with the Guggen Baits Kraken Crawl
Yep.
or the Berkeley Chigger Crawl. Those are
I
two
love
really
the
good
chicken crawl.
trailers.
Yeah, I
Oh
love
yeah.
the chicken crawl. That's a go-to for me all the time. I did
Oh yeah.
just get into from a company called Magnum Baits. They call it the
Okay.
beef craw, which I mean, Bobby roast beef. I had to try it. But I have a theory with jigs. Last summer, I was watching Tactical Bassin, and this was like early spring, and they did a video and in there was a tip where they were talking swim jigs and
Mm,
tips to just to change things up, and one of their suggestions was to go with a much larger trailer on a swim jig than
mm.
you think you'll need. The difference in the year that I had on my swim jig fish was unbelievable. The quality, I
Oh
got
yeah.
bit more and I was getting better fish. Like I probably had 3 times the number of fish that were 17 inches or larger, and I was it was unbelievable. So I saw these craws and they're huge, like they're the size of my hand. They're
Right.
5 inches. And
Yeah.
I'm like, I gotta try it. I gotta try it just to see if I can get those similar results, on a different jig. But yeah, I love for me, the go-to is the chigger craw. It's just I
Oh
think
yeah.
it's sort of like the perfect in between craw bait to throw. That's
Yep.
awesome. What else do you have for that are like big confidence baits for you?
So the bait that I caught my 711, my current PB on, was
Mhm.
actually 6 cents paddle tail swim
Yeah,
bait.
nice.
Just rigged up simple on a jig head,
Is that
in the sexified shad color.
nice, nice. Is that the 6 cents whale?
No, this is the divine swim bait.
Oh, that's the divine. Gotcha, gotcha.
Divine.
Yeah,
Yep.
dude. Swim baits in general, like paddle tails, like small plastic swim baits, are just fire all the time.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
I had a battle with a pike that was way longer than my entire catch board. So my
Mm,
catch board is like 26 inches. This fish went at least 30. It was just absolutely huge. And I say almost because he actually bit a small finesse jig from Giltech that I had
mm,
rigged with a 3-inch Kitech fat impact, and pulled me into the weeds. I mean, super finesse. I actually had gone back
yeah.
to chasing because I had a smallmouth nose up to a 4-inch swim bait that I was throwing on my way to a spot, and he didn't bite, just kind of nosed up to it and turned off. And I was like, I wonder if I can go back and get him if I maybe downsize or change something and try and dial him in. So I go back over there and I got bit within like 3 or 4 casts, and it ended up being this pike. I got him to the boat, like tried to get into the weeds. I basically just kept on him, just worked the hell out of him to get him up to the boat, got him up there, and he bit my leader, just broke right off. I could see it just grazing
Ah.
his teeth. I was
Ah.
putting the net in the water, and I was like, he's gone. My rod
Yeah.
just snapped right back up. I was like, you got to be kidding me. So needless to say, I have a bone to pick with northern pike in one particular
Oh yeah.
Berkshire lake, and we'll be rectifying that situation. But that is freaking bananas, man. I love I love gear, you know,
Yeah.
like I
Yeah.
love trying out new stuff and going out. And I assume you're probably a little bit of the same. Like you might get into something and say, let's see how this works, because it's almost like you're a little kid playing with your toys. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah.
And then if you can trick this wild animal to
Yeah.
feed response to try to attack it. I mean, it's unfreaking believable. So you're in South Jersey, right?
Yeah. South Jersey.
Your part of Jersey. Are you Taylor ham country or pork roll country? I always forget.
Pork roll. Pork roll.
Pork
It's
roll.
pork roll.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. I wasn't sure. I wasn't 100% sure.
Yeah.
Let's get back to some of the other like what other podcasts have you been a part of? Anything, any of the other ones? Any less little guys that you've been involved with?
No, as far no, so far just part of Ike Live, but I'm
Yeah,
going to be a guest in the near future for a New Jersey multi-species podcast.
I love that show, dude.
Joe and Chris, they looking forward to joining them for a guest segment.
I just discovered them this past winter, and man, I've been binging. Like I've been absolutely freaking loving it. I love
Yeah,
that show. I love that they
Joe.
cover everything.
Yeah, Joe is he's an interesting feller because he's one of
Yeah,
those oddballs that does not like bass fishing. He thinks they're the
that's
most overrated
yeah.
fish on earth.
You know, I feel like it's funny. You'll run into some of those like multi-species anglers that are like, "Oh, cool, I got a bass." They're just not excited at all. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then there are anglers out there that really do think that largemouth are the most difficult fish to catch. And I'm like, are you
They're
serious?
smart.
They
They're
are
smart,
they are
especially
smart.
from pressured lakes.
Yeah, but like, I mean, there's so many different species that I've caught with such like I guess with at least around here, largemouth are so plentiful. They're in almost every body of water. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Uh,
that's also what makes them so
appealing.
popular too.
Yeah, oh, for sure. They're hardy as hell. You mentioned snakehead.
Accessibility.
Yeah. Now you
Yes.
mentioned snakehead earlier. Do you have that sort of passion with snakehead as well, or how many have you caught,
S-
and
So
what's the experience been?
so snakeheads, they are really aggressive and
Yeah.
awesome fish. Really awesome fish. But all three, I've only caught three snakeheads, and they've all
Mhm.
been not accidental catches. I wasn't expecting them.
Yeah,
The
like by
river that I caught, yeah, bycatch. The river I catch them out of is actually brackish water that I catch a lot of stripers and catfish
really?
and perch out of. Yeah, but the
Okay.
biggest snakehead in my PB is 7 pound, 13 ounce, 28 inches.
It's
Big fish, dude.
powerful
Big
fish.
fish on a big fish on a white paddle tail on a jig head. 12-pound monofilament line, no leader. It was a crazy fight.
Freaking no leaders. No leaders,
Nope.
man. I love that, dude. That is freaking nuts. I talk to some folks and like, snakehead they are aggressive. It's like the closest thing I've ever caught. I caught one bowfin, and I love bowfin. I think they're great. I caught an 18-inch bowfin that fought like I had a pit bull on the end of the hook.
Hmm.
This was definitely like very crystal clear, not a bass. I caught it on a Texas rigged Senko. Um,
Wow.
and he bent the hook like almost straight out once it was in the net. It was ridiculous. Just like
Jeez.
absolutely destroyed it. Yeah, I was like, okay, let's take our time measuring this fish and figure out how the
And
hell to
just
this.
an 18-incher. Imagine what a
That's
giant
it.
would be like.
Yeah, if it was a big one, I mean, unbelievable. And
Jeez.
it's like that's the thing. Yeah, 18 inches. That's like nothing.
That's like a
Um,
pickerel.
yeah, it really is in a
Sheesh.
lot of ways. But like it's amazing. Like I think that bowfin, if snakehead fight anything like them or more aggressively, my God, it's funny in your area. There are two fish that I am this year targeting for the multi-species scavenger hunt. It's snakehead for sure. It's a category that we have listed on there, and they're not everywhere. There's rumors that there's been one caught in Massachusetts in the past couple of years. I mean, it's only going to be
Hmm.
number of years before they make it up here, which I'm fine with. you know,
Oh
uh,
yeah, yeah, they're fun.
that exactly because they're fun. And then there's another one, and then blue cats. We don't have blue cats up here, and
We
in the
don't have
mid
them either.
Atlantic. Yeah, you go, but
We
it's not too
we
far,
we
and you can get them.
yeah, yeah. We the only three species of catfish we have, or should I say, the big three we have, are channel cats, white cats, and bullheads.
Yeah.
So the best we got is channel cats, which they're fun too.
They are a blast. I haven't caught what I would consider a big catfish, like I would say exceeding 10 pounds in my life. And I mean, just catfish are just amazing. But the blues, specifically, I'm like, unbelievable, just
Hmm.
absolutely ridiculous. Some of these fish. So, like that mid Atlantic area,
Huge.
I'm looking to try to travel as much as I can and just,
Yeah,
say, okay, so here we're going to do a send here. I might catch a bunch of species that I could catch up here as well. But hey, we're going to send it, Let's talk
yeah.
travel.
Yeah.
Have you done any traveling to fish specifically?
I have actually not far, but I fished the Conowingo Dam area down in Maryland for smallmouth bass and striped
Oh, there you go.
bass.
Yep.
I mean that's a trip that me and my buddy could take a couple of times a year, and also a really good spot up in northern Pennsylvania, northern part of the Susquehanna River. Man, smallmouth bass coming
Yeah.
out of your ears, man. It is so much fun. Just waiting the Susquehanna for, 2-pound bronze backs that just shoot out of the water like missiles.
Oh,
Just
yeah.
they are just so energetic, so fun.
I'm actually considering doing, considering I've kind of like committed to it, but doing the kayak adventure series stop at the Susky, just because of all of the buzz about how amazing the Susquehanna is, as
Hmm.
far as being an amazing smallmouth fishery. Specifically, smallmouth are probably among my favorite species.
Oh
Like, they
yeah.
fight
Oh yeah.
unbelievably well. They're just special. I love the
Oh
patterns.
yeah.
I think they're one of the prettiest fish that are out there.
Yeah.
They're just absolutely beautiful, man. Um, let's get into some of the other Jersey stuff. Now, I like to I like to ask this question primarily for two reasons. Like, I'm a nosy guy, I'm a big guy, and I'm a food fan, but also I'm sort of selfishly making a list of spots to hit up. So one of my favorite things is to do is, like, if I go out on a body of water and I'm fishing and I'm out, early morning and I'm just killing it, or it's terrible. Sometimes what I'll do is I'll just either use the opportunity to celebrate or to just kind of like drown my sorrows in, a really good meal, be it a late breakfast or a lunch or something at a mom and pop spot in your area. Like, where's the place that you're going to that you're like, yep, this is the place I gotta go to grab a breakfast or a lunch after I'm done fishing first thing in the morning?
Well, I'm a big fan as far as the more popular franchises. I'm a big fan of Red Lobster. Seafood, love it,
Really?
you know?
Okay.
Yeah. But more localized area, I really like going to this diner called Mary's. It used to be Dino's Pizza, but got bought out. But they have the best fried flounder sandwich I've ever had. So good.
Really?
And it's like 30 seconds away from the
Yep.
lake that I caught my 7-pound bass at. So it's convenient.
That's awesome, man. What's your favorite fish specifically to catch and eat?
It's a toss up between striped bass and yellow perch. They are both really good eating,
Dude,
especially
yellow
yellow
perch.
perch.
Yeah, yellow perch is really fantastic.
Yeah.
Striper, I've heard that stripers are great eating.
They
And
are.
there's mixed reviews, that I've heard from some people that are just like, I'm not eating that fish. Have you ever seen the sea fleas they're covered in? And I'm just like, okay. I'm like, no, I haven't. Believe it or not, I've never caught a striper. I live like 10
No.
minutes away from the Connecticut River, and we have a striper run that comes right up here that people
Mm,
lose their shit about. And I've never ever caught a striper, like, even just as like bycatch when I was fishing in the ocean, never.
yeah.
Um, yeah, I got to change that. But I also
Yeah, they're a lot of fun.
there's a lot of folks that they discover fishing for striper and then they just don't do anything else. Like, they're committed to it and they're just like, oh yeah, I fish for stripers and that's it. I don't want to become that guy. I hope that's not what ends up happening should I get
Nah,
into them,
nah.
but it is a slippery slope, man. And then out like Cape
Uh,
Cod canals,
yeah.
it gets nuts.
I mean, it's like, why limit yourself in life? I mean, why catch just one species? Why target just one species
Yeah,
when there are so many fish to catch and some bite better during certain times of the year? Like in the
that's
wintertime,
true.
I'm out there catching big chain pickerel and slab crappie in the wintertime because
Yep,
that's what's the most abundant. And then in this fall, I'll target, your striper run, your schoolie stripers that are a lot of fun to fight, largemouth bass, and in the springtime, I'm like 120% committed to largemouth bass because that's when
yeah,
the big pre-spawn girls, big bellies come out, up,
that's what
up
you're looking for.
shallow.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly what you're looking for, and that makes sense. I think you nailed it right there. I think the idea of like an example I like to give folks is like, look at brook trout. When they're setting up to spawn, they some of them look like a completely like different. Their patterns are so
Hmm.
vibrant, and it's just
Oh yeah.
like, you get that picture in the net or holding that fish, and it's just like it's almost like you just check it off your bingo card. You know what I mean?
They're a
Um,
work of art.
they really are, man. Like, and you nailed it. Like, even yellow perch, like, I was out
Oh
with a
yeah.
guy yesterday, We were fishing this one spot. It's a lake that's right near me. I fish this place probably twice a week throughout the season. It's just so convenient. And it's got a great, I'd say, a great cast of multi-species. Like, it's a good bass lake. It does get stocked with trout. There's rainbows and browns. I have caught bluegill in there. That's the primary forage. There are some craws in there. They also feed up in a couple of spots. And then you've got bowfin in here. I caught my first ever black crappie out of this spot. And I recently, just this year, actually, it's so weird. I would go over to this one spot this winter when it wasn't iced up. And I've been talking to other anglers, and they're just like, yeah, they're like, there's great crappie in here. I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. And then my buddy was like, hey, man, I got to run around the corner. I forgot something. I said, okay, cool. While he's gone, I hook up into a small crappie, like a 7-incher. And I'm like, I can't, I just told him, I'm like, so many people in this last couple of months have told me this body of water is great for crappie. And I fish it like 2 days a week or more in some cases. I've never caught one, and here we are. But then again, I've also caught rock bass over there. And I had never, ever, ever seen a rock bass. They don't even show up on the list from the state as a species that's in there. Who knows? Who knows how they got in there? But it's crazy. And then what else do we have? A bowfin, and then I thought somebody had taken out the pickerel population because 3 years ago I hooked into a giant pickerel. I've never caught a small one in there. Every pickerel I've ever caught has been a giant, but that was the last one I had caught for like 3 years. And then last September, I sunk into like a 20-incher, and I was like, okay, so they're all right. Just
It's
it's
there's no
nuts.
getting rid of pickerel. There's no getting rid of them things.
And
They are tough.
they're one of the only native Massachusetts fish,
Same
that are
same
native.
same with Jersey.
It's
Yeah,
crazy. It's like we only
yeah.
have a couple. It's like yellow perch, brook trout, and chain pickerel. And I think chain pickerel get a bad rap. Um, I know what is it? Alex from Bass and Brews loves chain pickerel or catches them often in his area. And
Yeah.
would you say that they're more abundant in Jersey than even bass?
Uh, oh yeah. I mean, I would say I'm gonna say yeah, because they're in just about every body of water. But
Mhm.
there are some bodies of water, man, they get so big. Like if you scroll through my Instagram post, you'll come upon a 5.5, 5 pound, 8 ounce on the dot, 25-inch pickerel I caught. And man, that thing was so beautiful. I mean, I had a couple guys ask me if that was a red fin pickerel because the orange fins, the belly fins were like orange. Like
Oh, kidding.
I mean, I can't complain about about a specimen like that. They are
No.
so beautiful. Once they get once they start getting around 22, 23, 24 inches, they're a respectable fish at that size. A lot of
For
fun.
sure they are. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
those like 10, 12, 14-inch snot
Yeah,
rockets.
those are the ones that are like, ah. Yeah.
Exactly.
But the
Exactly.
big ones, they're like little muskies, you know.
Hell yeah. Yeah, that they really are. They really are, man.
Yeah.
And that's a whole like family of fish, pike, muskie,
Yep.
pickerel that are
Esox.
just they're just exciting. You know what I mean?
They are.
They're
They are.
just freaking exciting, man. Now, do you have a bucket list of spots or any kind of bodies of water around the country that you, or even around the world, that you would just absolutely give your freaking left nut to fish?
Yeah, for one thing, for as a big bass enthusiast,
Yeah,
OH freaking Ivy. See,
yeah,
I've seen some of those giants that Milliken and Josh Jones have pulled out of there like it's nothing. 13 pounders like it's nothing, you know?
yeah,
So OH Ivy is at the top of the list, and I'd really love to catch a muskie. They're my number one bucket list species. So I would say probably
yeah,
Mille Lacs Lake for muskie. That's a really
yeah,
good muskie lake. And for smallmouth, the St. Lawrence River. I've got a couple buddies that have fished there,
yeah.
and they catch 4 or 5 pound smallmouths out of there like it's nothing. You know, it's insane.
There is we have friends that are up by the St. Lawrence River, Abe Lure Lab. Chris and Christina, love them. They're absolutely awesome. Abe is a custom lure painting operation, and they're just, this stuff is just out of this world. And they have they even have like rental, like lodging up there, and they keep telling me, they're like, oh, dude, you got to come up. You got to come up when the smallie spawn starts. You got to come up. It's out of this world. It's fishing that you've probably never experienced before. And I'm like, yeah, this needs to happen. This needs to happen. I just got to get a calendar on the date and make it work. But you're speaking my language with all those bodies of water,
Oh
all of them.
yeah. Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
and that's kind of my goal. Is like I love getting out there and just having the experience. When I fished with Jabberhammer, like the fishing when we were down there was just abysmal. Conditions were insane. We had one day that was like the fairest weather that we had. We had a second day was just torrential rain. We got soaked. Had to go, we fished for like half a day, and then basically the rest of the day we basically just dried out at camp. And then the third day, the rain had let up, but we were getting winds that were like sustained at 20, 25 miles an hour, which was just brutal. And I was one of these things where just think that the cold front that had come through had kind of turned them off. Like I
Hmm.
heard that some folks were catching them, but like most of the boats that I was interacting with weren't anybody in our area. Nobody was catching a damn thing. Paul caught one, and I caught a crappie at the little pond next to our campsite, which would be a great no skunk. I'll take it, but Jesus, I drove, something like 30 hours round trip for that
Jeez.
little
Yeah.
crappie.
You should.
But it
I'm
was like
telling you, you should have got there before the cold front, because I bet that would have been an insane
That's I
bite.
was I'm sure. I'm sure. And that's actually what it was. He had some intel of some guys that had sunk some hooks into some sizable fish in this one area. But it's also crazy too. And I do love this. I love the challenge. Like I've fished Chickamauga and I've fished Jordan Lake, and both of those bodies of water are bodies of water that I'm not used to fishing whatsoever. Like up here, we have a lot of much more visibility. We do have a lot of tannic water up here, like that really dark, like tea stained water. But
Yeah. 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 We have that
visibility,
around here.
like even when you have like a little bit of like green or brown stain in the water, you
Yeah.
still have like 3 or 4 feet of visibility, you
Yeah.
know, and out like down there, there's no grass. Like there's no
Hmm.
grass in Jordan Lake. It was crazy. Nothing
Hmm.
whatsoever. It's just like flat bottom. You got to just look for, rock piles was the big one. Rock piles and submerged wood. That's
Oh
all you
yeah.
can. It's crazy, man.
Yeah.
Let's talk. Actually, you know what? Let's do this. Let's have you jump in, and I'm going to ask you for 2 stories, and that's primarily what
Okay.
this show is really all about. It's fishing stories, and I love to
Right.
ask this question to kind of know um, how good it's been and how bad it's been. And we've already talked about your PB. The first story might be about your PB. The first story I want is like that fishing story where like if you're at a party or an event or something like that, like a wedding or something, you go up to the bar and somebody goes like, "Hey, Paul, yeah, so and so said that you fish." Like, what's that story you're gonna lead with? That either might be super entertaining, something you're super proud of, or something like that. So go ahead, tell me that story, and then I want
So
the and then the follow up. I want the story where it was the biggest when the shit hit the fan and it all fell apart.
oh
That's what I'm
man.
looking for.
All right. So I have a lot of good fishing stories. I probably told two of my favorites already about my 7 pounder and then meeting Ike while he catches his 7 pounder. So I'm going to talk about my previous PB, 6 pound, 7 ounce. So it was at the same lake I got my 711 from.
Yep.
It's actually a pretty small pond, but it's an okay sized pond.
Mhm.
But a buddy of mine, Adam Ihara, you might have heard of him. He makes his own custom baits. He hand carves crank baits and jerk baits and wake baits. So he
Mhm.
actually made me a. I'm a big Marvel fan. I'm a big fan
Oh,
of
there you
Captain
go.
America, Iron Man. But
Love it.
he had hand carved and painted a Captain America wake bait for me, and he's probably about an hour and a half drive from my local area. But he was down in my fishing one of my lakes for a tournament with his buddies,
Mhm.
and so he told me about it to meet me at the lake so he can give me my Captain America bait. So I met him there, and we talked, and he gave me my bait, and I thanked him, and then he went back out in his boat to finish the tournament. And I walk around to the bank to a corner. It's one of my local lakes, so I know there's a tournament going on, but I'm not gonna go there and not make a few cats from the bank.
Of course,
So
yeah.
I'm fishing this little corner. I'm throwing around the Strike King Bitsy bug, and fishing it this particular corner that actually has a pipe running underneath of it, which is a big fish magnet. And
Mhm.
So I'm dead sticking it, and I feel a bump. I thought I pulled into some grass. So when I lift up, I feel weight. I'm like, oh, what is this? And then in the water, I've got my polarized shades on. In the water, the
Mhm.
biggest bass I've ever seen at the time opened its mouth and it's looking right at me, coming right at me, and that's when the hook pops out. I'm like, dadgummit, son of a gun! I just lost my PB.
Yeah.
I was mad, but I calmed down. I just
Mhm.
kept fishing the same spot for about five minutes later. 5 minutes later, the same fish bites because I feel a thump and I feel it swimming off with my bait. I'm like, oh, here we go. Swung on him, and then once I get him near the bank, I see how big it is. I'm like, it's the same one. I got my hands on her lips. I'm like, yeah, 6 pounds, 7 ounce, Thanksgiving weekend, 42-degree water from the bank while there's a local tournament going on the water. Yeah, that was just
Insane.
unforgettable.
Yeah, that's badass, man. That really is.
Just,
Like that's freaking unbelievable,
I
man.
mean, the same fish came back a second time. That never happens with a 6+ pounder. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? They're
No.
they're smarter than that. That was so unreal.
Yeah, 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 absolutely. That is insane, man. That's banana. That's a good story. That's a great
It
story.
is.
You know,
It
uh,
is.
that Bitsy bug you said was it black and blue?
It was green
It was
pumpkin.
green from pumpkin. Yeah, you can't go wrong with
Yep.
green pumpkin, man. That is
Yep.
freaking dynamite, dude. And I'm sure we're. It's one of those situations. You're on a body of water, bank fishing, and you pull a fish out like that. Like you're not holding back your emotions. If
Oh no. Oh no. Everybody on the water heard me. Adam
yeah,
was like, "Man, I bet you they heard you from the top of the North Jersey."
yeah,
It
oh,
was insane.
that's what I'm
And
saying. They
come to
need that.
find out, oh yeah, come to find out, their biggest fish, their lunker of that tournament was only 4.3.
I was just
That
gonna
was
ask
just,
you that. That is freaking awesome, man.
dude, that was crazy.
Dude, that is insane, man. I love that. That is freaking great. Now, what about the one where it all kind of went to pieces? Because this is what's so difficult about this question is that everybody has a million of these stories. You know?
All right, so I've got two brief ones. One of them is
Okay.
mostly about my good buddy Josh Birch. He's like my main sidekick when it comes to fishing. He goes fishing with me everywhere.
Yep.
And we were in his John boat one day. It was a really windy day. He's got this really light 12-foot John boat. No anchor, no power pole, nothing like that. So we're just getting constantly pushed into the bank from the wind. And Josh is just trying to fiddle around tying a knot on his spinner bait, just trying to hurry up and tie it so he can make his next cast before he has to move the motor again.
Hmm.
And winds up hooking the winds up putting a hook through his thumb. And I'm like, I didn't know how serious it was, but he's like, dude, I think I got a situation. I turn around and the spinnerbait hook is in his thumb. And so stupid him not thinking, he goes to use wire cutters and clip it off, thinking that's gonna help. And he cuts it off and he just about passes out. He's like, Paul, I'm feeling a little woozy. I'm like, all right, dude, just get us to the bank, just get us to the bank. And so I'm sitting there at the front of the boat and I just hear boom. I turn around and dude,
He
he
passed
passed
out.
out and passed
Oh,
out, fell down into the boat. And I'm like, Josh, Josh. And he just comes to like 2 seconds later. And he's like, what? I'm like, dude, you almost fell out of the boat. What are you, dude? This is more serious than I thought. Yeah. You know what I mean? So it's like I grab the paddle. I'm just trying to hurry up and guide us towards the dock. So he gets out of the water. We get back to his dad's place. His dad's has got a lot of medical training, so
yep.
he's got to go to the hospital and get it taken out. But that had my heart thumping. So I make sure he gets to the place that they need to take it out of him and get him to his dad's, and then I split ways. I make sure he's in good hands. I split
Oh,
ways, get back in my car. I
yeah.
drive off, head back to another spot, and I catch a 5 pounder that evening. I told Josh, I'm like, that's twice that two different reasons that I had a heck of an adrenaline rush. One was a bad reason when I thought you were going to fall in the water, and number two was when I caught a 5 pounder later on that day. That was
That's
crazy.
bananas, dude. That
You
is
know,
that's a crazy ass day.
I've still never been hooked past the barb, and seeing what that did to Josh, that scares the heck out of me. I'm not looking forward to when that might happen. You know what I mean?
Dude.
I'm a very careful angler. Let's put it that way. I'm very careful.
And you know what? Don't change. It's
Yeah,
important to be
yeah.
careful. I will tell you, I'm still gun shy with treble hooks. Like I
Oh
never
yeah.
carry a fish grip. I never used to, and I do now. And the main
Oh yeah.
reason why I do is for removing treble hooks
Faceful.
from fish.
Yep.
Um,
I'm telling you, there is nothing more terrifying than a pissed off pickerel flopping around with a face full of treble hooks, dude. They are just livid nightmares, dude.
I'll tell you. I was out fishing with. There's a guy. We've become really good friends. He is. I used to just follow his social media stuff because it was just entertaining. Delirious Angler. I don't know if you've ever seen this guy. He's a character. We had him on the show multiple times. And just to give a little bit of reference, like Delirious is a former football player. Like he's a sizable human being. With
Right.
he's something else. Well, we had made plans to fish on this one morning, and like I'm a dad. I got to drop my kids off at school. It's just my youngest, and I had to get her off to school and everything. And there was some kind of a hiccup. I was going to be late, so like my mind, I'm like, I want to get there. We're taking his boat out in this one body of water, and it actually was a body of water where I caught my PB. So I was really hoping that this was going to be a great day. He was going to get some big fish. I was going to catch some big fish. It would be great. So we get out on the water and everything's good. Now, prior to this day, like the day before, good friend of the show, Derek, owns a company, Wrangling Baits, had sent me a lipless crankbait. He knows that I'm a sucker for perch patterns and fire tiger, and he sent me this beautiful lipless. I love to throw a lipless. I generally, when it comes to crankbaits, I'm throwing square bills for shallow, lipless for everything else, just
Right.
because of the versatility,
Yeah. Yeah.
No, he sends to me this, and I just put brand new hooks on it. I'm like, this thing looks beautiful. I'm like, this is gonna be what I'm gonna throw and just try to find a bite. And we're out for maybe about 45 minutes or an hour. Again, like I'm still like trying to like all the stress of the day, like put it away in my head. And I'm fishing a little bit faster than I should, and I'm trying to slow down. Finally, I do, and I hook up. I'm like, oh, this is good. Feels like a dink. Doesn't feel like anything
Mm-hmm.
impressive whatsoever, but it was a small yellow perch. It was probably about 8 inches, right? I take this fish in and I'm like, I'm holding the line and I go and I grab the bait and it moves. And then that loose treble gets me right in the thumb. That's why I reacted when you
Ooh.
pointed to your thumb right there, right up.
Oh yeah.
Now, I couldn't see it through my nail or anything like that. Like it wasn't that far in, but it was way past the barb. And I'm like, okay, this sucks. Now I am attached to the fish, and this fish is on
Oof.
the crankbait, flopping
Just
around. I'm like, holy.
ah
So
ah.
I grab my pliers and I just shake the fish off, get him off, and then I take my pliers, my split ring pliers, and I take the hook off of the bait. Put everything back. I wish I still had that crankbait. I don't know where it is. It might actually be in the bottom of his boat. Might have. I have no idea. So I'm looking at this crank and I'm like, okay, everything's good. We're everything's all right. I'm like, we're gonna learn how to do the braid trick today, D. That's what we're gonna do. So like any true professionals would, we looked up a couple of YouTube videos and we're like, got it, let's go. So we have everything in place. I'm holding my hand in the right perspective so that he's able to pull this, and he's like, all right. And like I'm in shock. Like I'm not like processing anything. And I'm like, we just got to do it. We just got to do it. Now I'm holding my hand up against me and putting pressure on the hook so that it's at the right angle. So ideally it should just come right out. He takes and puts a bunch of braid together and creates a nice little band and goes to do the pull. And as he does, my body at over 300 pounds goes forward. He pulled me forward instead of
Oh
pulling the hook out.
jeez.
So I said,
Ah.
this is a little bit further beyond me. I'm going to go ahead and make some phone calls. Now, my sister works in an ER, and I reached out to her and I said, listen, I got a finger, or I got a hook and a finger. I was like, I've got to go. And, I was hoping she had the supplies. And she even said, she's like, if I had the stuff here, I'd say, just come here. She's like, go to an urgent care. They'll be able to do it. Well, I called an urgent care. They couldn't do it. They're like, you got to go to an ER. So my
Mhm.
sister makes a couple of calls and she's like, they're expecting you. Just go. And I was like, all right, cool. I go in. They were so good. They got me right in. And I have never seen a ER tech or a doctor like break a sweat trying to remove a hook from a hand. Now they shot me full of lidocaine.
Jeez.
I couldn't feel anything. I was just, and I was looking over at my shoulder, and I'm talking to the there was a student in there that was interning, and she's like, do you mind if I stay in here to kind of see how this is done? Because I've never seen a hook get removed. And the grimacing on her face told me everything I needed to know. I was like, I'm not
Mm.
going to look over here. Yeah, it sucked. So, like, even now, like, if I have a fish and I've got a fish in my net and I'm throwing a jerk bait or something like that, especially like a 110 jerk bait with 3 trebles, I'm like, yep,
Yeah.
you're going to
Fish
get the
grips.
fish grips and I'm
Yep.
going to have
Fish
this
grips and pliers. Yep.
expires. Man, I'm not fooling around anymore. I'm not taking those chances. But dude, that's rough. That's rough. You said you had one more for us.
I had one more, and it's probably the most frustrating and
Oh,
just
he's my favorite.
when it comes probably the worst experience I've had losing largemouth bass.
Mm,
So here I am at again the same pond that I've been catching giants from, that I've caught my 6 and my 7 from.
yep.
Same pond loaded with giants. Never seen so many 6-pounders come from one pond in South Jersey. So I'm here one early spring morning, and I'm throwing around a Vibrax inline spinner. Really good bait. I've caught a lot of nice bass on that, especially in colder water. So here
Yep.
I'm just throwing it around the bank, and I hook into something big. And I thought it's a big pickerel because they love inline spinners.
Yeah,
But
they
then I
do.
see a big bass, big bass jump out of the water like a tarpon. I'm like, oh yeah, here we go, here we go. I get it close to the bank. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's like a 6-pounder. That's got to be a 6-pounder. And I get it close to the bank, and set the rod down. She's almost tired. I set the rod down, grab the line, start guiding her towards me, and bink, the hook just pops out, and I see the inline. I'm pulling the line. I see the inline coming at me, and the fish is going the other way. I'm like, it took a lot to process what happened, and she just
Oh
flopped
yeah.
around and swam off. I'm like, no! I was mad, but
Oh,
I kept fishing. I kept fishing. Get this, I kept fishing. I was mad. I cooled myself off, picked my rod back up, made a few more casts, hooked something else nice. I'm like, oh yeah, here we go. And then probably a 3 or 4 pound bass just comes up to the water for a head shake and just throws the hook. I'm like, I'm done. I'm going home. I'm
I'm
done.
on
This is
the
not my
phone.
day.
I'm calling my therapist. I need
I'm done.
assistance. Yeah.
It's
Oh my
timeout.
god.
I'm done. I'm done. Because I don't, I'm like, you know what? Some days you just know that's not the day. I mean,
Yeah.
there's a fine line, but there's a fine line between keep on grinding, keep on at 'em, and just knowing that, yeah, it's not your day, buddy. Just go home and do something else.
Yeah.
It was one of those days.
Yeah, and that's the thing. That's what sucks about those situations. Like Chad Hoover has a saying, and I love this saying. He goes, "You did everything right but the fight." You know what I mean? Like when you hook
Yeah.
into a
Yeah.
fish and like you lose them or they shake off or something, they're like
Yeah.
something had happened there, and I get that. Your situation, that you just got screwed because you had the bait come back to you. There was a
Yep.
day last summer and I was throwing around that swim jig with like a 5-inch paddle tail, and I'm chucking this thing around all this wood, and I'm trying to work out. And I had actually already caught a couple of giants, and I'm like, I was feeling great. And I had this is the weirdest situation. So I have this bait. It goes down toward the end of this laydown. It's relatively deep in this area, and I let it hit the bottom. And I basically what I do is I just kind of like do the Alabama shake on the way out. Like I'm reeling it in real slow, but I'm moving my rod tip to give that secondary action, and it gets hammered. Like I said, I've already caught a few tanks on this exact
Hmm.
same presentation. So I'm like, oh yeah, here we go, baby. This is going to be a big one. Now, this water it's got kind of like a greenish kind of tint to it, but the visibility is really good. Like you probably have about 6 foot of visibility. It's pretty insane. And I see this fish come up and you can see it with the head shakes. And I'm like, okay, so this is the one that's there. And I say the one because there was another tank that was just off to the side, like watching this whole thing happen. And I'm like, holy shit, there was oh, I can't believe this. This is insane. So I'm working to try to get this fish up. I got the net and I go to put the net out and try to scoop them up, and my knot not even my knot. My line breaks because it's all frayed up from all the
Jeez.
wood I had been throwing this into, and like I
Yeah.
lost my goddamn mind. I lost my mind. I had a
Yeah.
complete meltdown because that was literally like if I would have got that jig and it just popped out, like there's nothing I could have done to prevent that. That is just like
Yeah.
tissue or whatever. Like there was nothing I could have done. But I should have retied. If I would have cut and
Retie.
retied, it would
Retie.
have been a
Yep.
different beast. I've become such a stickler for that now. I'm always
Oh
checking
yeah.
my way
It,
more than
it's
I used
it's
to.
it's like Bobby. On that note, the day I caught my 711, I had caught a pickerel prior to that that had kind of made some nick marks on the end of my line, and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to retie. And the next bite I got was a 7+. You know what I mean? That's why my buddy Tommy he said, dude, it's a good thing you remember to retie because you would
Yeah.
have lost that big bass.
Think about that.
You
Yeah,
know?
absolutely. Because you look back at it and you're like, that's something I could have prevented. And that's like,
Yeah.
yeah, fish shakes off or something. You got to just chalk that up to like, hey, the
It is what it is. Yeah. If they spit
yeah,
the hook, it is what it is. Yeah.
dude, that's wild, man. That is freaking nuts. I'll tell you, dude, a Vibrax freaking rocks, especially in cold
Oh
water,
yeah.
especially
Oh
in like,
yeah.
oh, if they're even just a cooling trend. It's like, yeah, they just freaking slap. And I feel like inline
Yeah.
spinners just get I don't want to say they get the shaft, but I think they get often overlooked. Although I don't know if you've
Yeah.
seen, if you pay attention to what Dark Horse Tackle has going on, but Picasso has this inline spinner that is just insane. It's just insane. It's like a weedless swim bait hook with a wire that comes off the tie and a big hammered like Colorado blade and a
Hmm.
wire tie at the end. It is just insane.
Hmm.
And it's just it looks freaking awesome. So I'm thinking that might be a nice pike bait, actually, to tell you the truth. Pike or
Yeah, there you
pickle.
go.
You like shiny
Yeah.
shit.
Oh
But
yeah.
good stuff. Paul, thank you so much for being part of the show, man. This is absolutely
Yes,
awesome.
sir.
Do me a favor before we let you go. If you're working with anybody or you want to just let folks know where they can find you on social media, see some of this amazing New Jersey bank fishing action. Let the listeners know and the viewers on YouTube exactly where they can find you and what they can look forward to. And if you're working with anybody at all, feel free to shout them out too.
Yeah. Well, I'm not even I wouldn't even consider myself a content creator. You know, I don't have any sponsors. I just
Mhm.
love catching fish and posting what I catch. That's all there is to it. I'm just a bank beater that just loves catching fish and sharing my fish. So you can follow along with my fishing adventures on Powerbait_Paul on Instagram, and then on Facebook on Paul Stewart and Powerbait Paul on Fishbrain. I do frequent posts on Fishbrain too.
Nice, dude.
So
That's awesome.
thanks for having me, Bobby.
Dude, it was really, really awesome. Sit tight. Don't go anywhere because for YouTube, I have something I want to get into exclusively. So we'll wrap
Okay.
up with that, but I'm going to wrap up with the audio listeners right now. Folks, thanks so much for tuning in and listening with Powerbait Paul. It was great to have him on. If I ever find, I'm going to find myself in Jersey. I mean, it's just going to
Oh
happen
yeah.
between the
Let me
friends.
know.
Yeah, absolutely, man. We're gonna go out, and I am always down because I dabble a little bit in the overlanding and stuff like that. I'm always down for a bank send and camping. I'm into it. Do you carp
Oh
fish
yeah.
at all?
I've caught a few carp on accident. I've actually had like an 8 pounder grab my grub that I caught on 6 pound line, so that
Oh
was
wow,
fun. But
that's fun.
as
Hell
far
yeah.
as yeah, as far as targeting them, not really. You know.
I I like to say that I dabble a little bit. Like I definitely mainly for I'm trying to say I dabble for the multi-species scavenger hunt. I'd love to see you get in on
Right.
this too. We'll talk about that later, but
Yeah.
yeah,
Let me know.
guys, we will be back with more jigs and bigs coming up right after this. Don't go too far. All right. Now that that's done, Paul, I have been looking on your Instagram, and there's something in here. We've talked about everything else: South Jersey freshwater angler, bank beater, guardrail guardian. By the way, I love that term right there. Um, Metalhead. I'm a bit of a punk and metal guy myself. I'd like to know like your short list of favorite bands or subgenres. What are you into?
Okay.
Yeah,
So I love like metalcore is like my absolute favorite. You know, like Devil Wears Prada, Kill Switch Engage. You know,
love
all that
those dudes.
remains.
Yes,
Yeah.
all that
But
remains
I
favorites, man. Now,
oh
here's
yeah.
the thing: Kill Switch. All That Remains, Shadows Fall, they're from my hood.
Really?
all
Okay.
all those bands, yeah. Like I was in my early 20s when like All That Remains was formed. It just started, and I was like floored. I love that
Hmm.
band. Love that band.
Yeah. And then
That's for
some of the hard rockers I really like is
Mhm.
Skillet, Evanescence, Breaking Benjamin, 3 Days
Yep.
Grace, Thousand Foot Crutch, Switchfoot, a lot of good hard rock bands out there.
Dude, that's awesome. Yeah, it's funny. My youngest daughter recently got into we'll just say aggressive music in general. It all started with
Yeah,
Metallica, like it usually
right,
does. Stranger
right.
Things introduced her to Master of Puppets,
There you go. There you
and
go.
which is a
Great
great
season.
place to
Great
start.
season.
Oh, hell
Great
yeah.
season. That
And
season was
she
phenomenal.
oh, it was so good. It was so good. Like great cliffhangers, like everything. It's just so
Yep.
good. So she got into it and then took a dive and I think what was it? Was it last? So I think last Christmas I got her tickets for Metallica. They're playing in Foxborough at in August. 2 dates is
There
what
you
they're
go.
doing. And I'm bringing her to both because I'm like I'm interested in seeing some of the openers as well. And she's totally into it. We brought her to go see what was it? Sick New World in Vegas, and we're just like, yeah, screw it. We'll take her to go to this. It is insane some of the shit she's into. Like she got to see System of a Down, not really one of my favorite bands necessarily, but I
They got
love
some bangers.
they do. And like they were playing what the hell was that the name of that song? Uh BYOB. They're playing BYOB at and I look over at my daughter and she's holding her phone up recording it. Like this is amazing. I can't believe it, man. I absolutely love like and Jersey's got some good stuff too. Like Dillinger Escape Plan's from Jersey, you know?
Yeah.
I'm a music geek, man. We can go down this rabbit hole. It'll just be an absolute mess. An
Oh
absolute
yeah.
freaking
Yeah.
I love it.
I actually used to play electric guitar a little bit. I used to
No kidding.
dabble in it. Yeah,
I used to
I actually have
play some music.
I have an Epiphone. I have two Epiphone Les Pauls and
Yep.
Squire.
No kidding. I used to play drums poorly, but I did. Um, it was just freaking bananas, dude. Yeah, that is
Yeah.
freaking awesome. Yeah, we like the metal at Jigs and Bigs. I mean, I listened to damn near everything. I've been a disc jockey for 30 years, so that just comes with the territory. But like, I
Yeah.
love to throw in something like I can remember when the kids were like babies, and I'd be in the car and I'd say like, "Oh, you guys want to listen to something good?" And I'd be like, "Here's Cryptopsy." It's just like, "What? Who is this man?" And I'm like, "Oh, it's whatever."
Yeah.
It's just freaking dynamite, dude. Yeah, I'm stoked. I'm very
But
stoked.
it's weird because as fishermen, everyone always associates fishermen with country music. Like,
Yeah,
oh, you're a fisherman, you like country music is depressing to me personally. I just don't like the sound of half drunk guys singing about, oh, I lost my wife. They took my truck away. My dog died. Let me grab my shotgun and end it all. No, 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 that ain't it.
that's
uh,
let me just grab
it's
my shotgun.
depressing.
Like, well, and I mean, there's country music that's like I've learned this with pretty much every single genre of music. There's music that is like in a genre that is mainstream and kind of like a little meh, like that can be said for like country, especially I would say country, especially from like the late 90s to like all the way through like the 2010s, all the way through. Like it was really just like kind of like pop music where you had a small group of people writing songs for everybody, and every single song
Right.
was about dirt roads and painted on jeans and
Yeah.
and I get that, but it's like, how many songs do you need about that? And then on the other hand, you have stuff that is really, really like out of this world that fits in that genre of country that just sticks
Mm.
out. And I'm thinking like, off the top of my hand, I'm thinking like Tyler Childers. You know what I mean? Stuff like that. There was a guy actually who's an angler that tipped me off to Tyler Childers way before it seemed like he just kind of blew up. Like he had this like I think it's a double live album, and it's so good, but it's more like in the line of like that country folk. It's not like country pop. It's not like what the fuck is the name of that dude? The fucking Body Like a Back Road, Sam Hunt. No, it's not like that. You know, you're disgusted by my knowledge of country music. I can tell. And
Yeah, you're just
it's
talking.
okay.
I'm like, I don't know who that is. I don't know who that is. But okay, I'll roll with it.
It's all right, man. Like it
Uh,
comes to the profession. People ask me to play songs all the time. You know how many times I'll be at a wedding and somebody asks me to play something, and I'm like, "You want me to play that pile of shit? That's garbage." I can't
at
say
least
that.
at least at least play some love songs from Bon Jovi. I mean, come on, you
That's what
know.
I'm saying. Oh, that's a really good question. Speaking of Jersey, are you Team Bon Jovi or Team Springsteen?
Bon Jovi.
Bon
Bon Jovi.
Jovi. So you're the
Yeah.
second New Jersey angler that I've had on the show that said exactly the same thing. And I'm wondering if it's an age thing. It might be. It
I
might
mean,
be.
I'm not that old. Bon Jovi's before my time, but my
Oh
mom and
yeah.
dad grew up listening to Bon Jovi, so he's
Oh
got
yeah.
some good stuff,
Oh no, for sure, for sure. I'm a bit of a Springsteen junkie, but I feel like he has a shelf life that's a little bit different. Like I love the old stuff. Once I think what was it, Born in the USA came out, I was kind of like, all right,
Mm.
I'm out. This isn't for me anymore. But it's not terrible. Like he's also had some newer stuff that's pretty good. But yeah, that's freaking awesome. I love asking those questions though with Jersey folks because it's very lots of times it's like one or the other.
Yeah.
Freaking
Yeah.
awesome, dude. Paul, this was great. I really appreciate it, dude. We will we'll have this show. You're actually gonna be on the next show. So
Okay.
majority of this is going to be on here, and we're actually one of our co-hosts had recently just left. He's got some future plans going that he doesn't have the time to be able to do the show, so we're kind of
Right.
reintroducing the show a little bit, and this will be. I'm expecting this to get a ton of listens. It'll be great. I think your fishing style will resonate with a lot of folks that listen to our
Okay.
show. That's awesome, dude. Appreciate it, man.
Thanks for having me.
All
It's
right,
it's
dude.
been an honor.
Awesome. You take care, man. We'll be in touch. All right.
Yeah, you too. Have a good
Have a
one,
good one.
Bobby.
See ya. Bye bye.